Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Well guys, I'm on the 460 dove heads and I'm not liking it. Every time I turn around I'm finding stuff I like less. And I made up my mind I wasn't even going to do the intake side. My son actually told me not to do that. He goes, just do the exhaust, means you want to do it. Just don't bother with that because he's afraid I'll get myself into a big long ordeal like I always do. But what I thought I'd do is just give it a quick cleanup. And then when you start digging, you realize your quick cleanup isn't never what you think it's going to be. Because I don't know if this will show up on the camera here, but when I run my reamer through the port, I always wonder why these heads never worked real well. I know the floor is a problem on the intake and the exhaust, but I didn't never realize, and this would be exactly the opposite from how I'd want it, it's actually bigger on the floor side in the port, and it pinches more off at the top. Well guys, I'm going to tell you something. That's the kind of stuff that really irks me because I do that just the opposite. I don't know if I can get this to show up here, but when I take this and put it in, I hope I can show you guys. The floor, you can see light around it. The roof, there's nothing there. So this is perfectly round. I don't know if you guys can see or not. I'm sorry about that. This is not going to lie to you. This is one diameter. And they do make this where it's oval. And they did that to get swirl. I'm assuming that's why that's made like that. I'm sure if I checked into other technical reasons why Ford did what they did, help me, Charles, with this. That would probably be their way of thinking. So, what do? Well, I don't want to port these any bigger. But I'll tell you what, fellas, I am not going to wind up with something in the back of my mind knowing that it has more tendency for the air to flow to the floor than to the roof. I hate that. I despise that. And on another note, fellas, if you can see how the guide sits to one side from the port, I was actually trying to take without getting too crazy, just move the wall over. I don't want to tube it or anything like that. I don't want to get into all that with these because they're not going to be on there that long, I'm hoping. But I am trying to even it out and steal some metal from this wall right here. So that's my plan with that. And I don't know if I can get the light to shine on this side or not. You get to see the lip on the stock one. So I'm hoping you guys can see that, the difference already, how that is, how it angles up on the floor. Remember guys, you're looking at it upside down. So the floor is at the top, the roof's at the bottom, and you can see the extra meat I already did take off the side. The port looks smaller, but like I said, I'm not making it bigger. I'm just trying to make it where it's even. That's all I'm after. I want an even port. And when I put this up in there, I wish I could get a close-up on this for you guys, but when I put this in, it does go all the way in until it hits right here to the side on that wall. That's where it has the problem. When I hold the reamer up straight here, it goes in a lot easier than when I bring it down to the bottom, which is the top, the roof, it pinches off. And that's exactly how, like I said, that is not how I would want that to be. If I had to make a choice on that, it would be just the opposite. It would be where, let's see if I get more light for you fellas. It would be where I'd rather have it on the roof where there's a little bit bigger area than the floor. And that's because the air has tendency to stay to the top. And even if it didn't, well, my way of thinking, I'd persuade it to do that. That's how I look at it. But I don't want to turn these into a situation here, fellas. My son will be really upset if I do. Because for some reason, he's wanting these out the door. Something's up he's not telling me about. I don't know if he has something lined up to go against another vehicle when I get this together, because that's usually what he's up to. He usually has something up his sleeve with a race, and this isn't a race vehicle. That's usually what happens when he has these little, hurry up, Dad, get this going. That's usually what comes out of it, and we'll see if I'm right about that. But I just wanted to bring this by you guys to see what you think. And like I said, I didn't want to do these any bigger. And I think some of the things that Ford did do with the lip, I think it has to do with swirl and to actually help with the fuel as far as breaking the fuel up. I think that's maybe what they had in mind behind that. I could be wrong. It could just be where they said, well, that's good enough, and left it like that. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. But as far as looking at it, guys, I like how this is better already compared to that. If you see up what I'm talking about. And it's a sharp ridge, guys. It's not like a little rollover. I mean, it's not terrible, but it is where you'd at least want to smooth this out a little bit, in my opinion. At least lay it back, even if you left that stock. A lot of guys back in the day did these heads for racing. I heard that they didn't even do the intake side. But what you hear and what they tell you in performance world, it's two different things. Some guys don't tell you everything they do. And so you always have to use your own judgment with stuff. But also, fellas, I don't know if you can see or not, the port does run off. Sorry guys, I'm trying to get in there on an angle. Well, I'm going to use this one. So hopefully you guys can see that, how it does run to one side. It dips over on this side more. And I noticed the floor ramps up more on this side than this side. This side is like lower. And I did a little test earlier, guys, with the Dicom. I don't want to get into that right now. I was trying just to do the segment on this alone right here. But once again, we use our common sense and think something's one way or another. And you think that floor, where it was low, would be where that fuel was going to stay. And it didn't, fellas. It actually went to the higher side. You would think it would run down the floor and go to the low side. When I blew air through it, it actually went to the other side of the floor where it's up higher. And that caught me off guard doing that. But I don't want to get into this, guys, but it looks like a bloodbath back there, how that emptied out. I'll do that other segment about this later because I'm trying to concentrate on one thing at a time so I don't get off from what I'm trying to tell you guys all the time. But I'm trying to show you guys this here so you can see how far off the guide is from the port, how my way of thinking was to try to get this wall over more and center that guide. So anybody watching this 460 segment, don't do what I'm doing because I'm doing what I think as far as me personally. This isn't something I know as far as the 460 goes. So I don't ever care if somebody copies anything I do if it's something that I know I'm doing right. But something that I'm speculating on, what I'm doing right here, guys, in my mind and what I see, and when I blow the excess metal out of here, it goes out. I did notice when I was chopping this back, that might sound corny, guys, but when I grind the wall back and then I just blew through the port, every time I was leveling this back and rounding it in, it went out quicker. It was flying out better and better. That's something I go by, fellas. It might sound off the wall. It's not very scientific, but I've never seen that be wrong to me. I've actually seen when I've done things like that, if I blow through something, I'll see where the excess metal will lay into a corner. And if I grind around it, it's actually showed me how to port sometimes. That's the way I've learned a few things, guys, and it's actually helped me out. But getting back to what I said, this is something that I'm experimenting with for my own self. I think you could actually do what I'm doing right here without hurting anything, but I am not going to tell you guys, hey, this definitely works, because I haven't proved that it works. If I put this together and it ran extremely well, and I would say, well, I know what I did with them, so it must have helped it out. Because I know how these engines run stock. I know how they run modified. That's one thing I do have the advantage on. But as far as doing this, what I'm doing right here, I've never done it before. And the only reason that it concerns me a little bit is because of the way this one's shaped. And you guys can see it has a lip on it, and then it goes back up. And that's all I'm really doing. See the bump on it, fellas? Where it first goes in. Okay, and then you have where I did it. I leveled it out. Which, if the head's upside down, if it was sitting upright, it would be more opened up a little bit. But not intentionally. Just taking the high spots out of it is what I'm doing, guys, and leveling it flat at the roof. The floor, I haven't really touched it too much yet. And that's how it basically was all the way around, the whole port. So, we'll see how this goes, guys. If my son saw me doing this right now, he's like, I told you not to mess with that. Just put it together. That's hard for me to do, guys. Charles, I think you might understand where I'm coming from with this. I just have a hard time leaving stuff alone when I think can be improved. Do I know I'm improving it? Well, it seems like I am. But the proof is in the pudding, as my mother used to say. And the proof will be when I see how this runs when it's all together. The one thing about the dove heads, a lot of people have done them up, and there are flow numbers on them, fellas. You can probably find that out. I've seen a few things where people say they get them around 300. I've seen where they go more than that, and to me, that's all to do with somebody that knows what they're doing with a pair of cylinder heads. Because just reaming this out doesn't mean it's going to make it flow bigger numbers. A lot of that comes to do with your valve angles and all that. So keep that in mind, guys. Don't just go hog wild and think you're going to port a pair of heads. Half the time porting heads isn't porting them. It's doing all the bad spots. And that's why I wish people would learn to do the bad areas first. Because opening a port up, I've told this many times in other segments, doesn't do anything if you don't get the rest of the head to accommodate what you're doing in the port. So I just wanted to run that by you fellas. I have a few guys ask me questions, and I always want to make sure that I don't tell somebody something that's going to make them worse off than what they were before they ported something. So I never want to mislead anybody with that. But anyway, guys, this is just something I thought I'd run by you. And just show you what I've been kind of playing around with. I really didn't want to get into these heavy tonight. I worked today, and I just thought, well, let me go out in the garage and just see about that, because it was bothering me. I looked at it, and I thought, I don't want to port that side. Because, to be honest, this intake, if I had to leave it stuck, it wouldn't be near as bad as that exhaust. The exhaust side on these things are the crucial thing on these heads. And like I said, even doing the guide, cutting it back, it's big, but you also have a lot of room in the bowl area with this. I would like to trim it down, cut it down, which I'll probably do. But we'll see how much time I have and how much pressure I'm under, because I have other stuff to get back on. Actually, too much. But we'll see how this goes, fellas. But anyway, you guys all have a good night. And I want to take the time to thank all the new subscribers. And once more, thank all you guys that's been with me from the get-go here. And I just want to take a minute to always do that to you guys, because without you fellas, there's no sense in me doing this. All right, guys, have a good night and take care.